Okay. Right, Nick, let's go back in time then. So when did we meet?
I think it's 20 years ago. And we met really just by chance.
Yeah.
I think I was pushing the buggy.
Yeah, I remember being at the front of my house. Definitely remember.
Yeah.
I feel like it was a sunny morning.
Yeah, it would have been like it was autumn term. Probably had conkers under the pushchair at that time.
Yeah.
I think we just got chatting, just a general morning and to each other as we passed. And then I think the day you was on your drive, I think we just got stood talking, seeing how the boys were settling into school. And somebody did say to me, you'll actually meet good friends when children start school.
Yeah.
And here we are, 20 years later.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, sort of going through that period of time as well, like our children have all sort of stuck together, haven't they?
Yeah, even now, at the ages that they are, we're not in each other's pockets all the time, but when we meet up, they all get on so well.
They do.
They've got a good relationship with each other,
yeah.
All of them. They're all different.
Yeah, they all are.
But they all get on.
Yeah, and they all look after each other as well, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I always think we were meant to be, we were meant to sort of be me and you, weren't we?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. So if we then were to fast forward that time then, so when I got cancer, that was 2012, so it was like eight years really after we'd met each other, but we'd already got a very strong friendship by that point, hadn't we?
Yeah, definitely.
And can you remember me telling you that I'd got cancer?
I can remember you going through your initial investigations, and as Jo said, I'll be fine. But deep down inside, knowing how scared you was, trying to make everything all positive, and trying to have conversations, even though the children was about, discreetly.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember me telling you in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But actually, if I sort of just go back a bit as well, I think both of us had actually had a little bit of a scare previously.
Yeah, exactly.
Hadn't we?
Yeah,
with it,
yeah,
we were very, we were really aware, I think, of that sort of breast awareness and everything before that period.
Yeah, exactly.
So probably I was probably blasé going in for the appointment, but then, well, I say blasé, but obviously you're always scared doing something like that. But I do remember me telling you, and I know it was the day that I'd come home, and I know it was the day that they said, look, we think you've got cancer.
Exactly. And then you had to go for like further testing.
Yeah.
And at the time you was thinking, it'll be fine, it'll be fine.
How as a friend does it make you feel when somebody's going through something so significant?
Oh, you worry about them. You can't. It's constantly on your mind. You try to put it to the back of your mind and get on with your daily routine, but it's still there. And you're just waiting for an update. You just want the next set of news. Yeah. Hopefully good news. Yeah. And everything will be okay again.
Yeah. This bit for me is a real blur now. I can't remember I know I will have told you as soon as, I'm sure you knew that I'd obviously got that hospital appointment on that Thursday. I also know it was running an hour late. I remember that. So for people who were waiting at home waiting for news, it must have been awful. But I genuinely can't remember much about that night. Do you remember me ringing you up to tell you that I'd got cancer and it had been confirmed?
Vividly remember. I know exactly where I was. I think one of the eldest boy had his football training, and I can remember saying, I'll ring you with an update. The phone rang. I answered. It was you, and you just said, Nick, I've got cancer, and that's all I can say. And I'm going to have to put the phone down now. And that was it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shock.
Yeah, and I can't remember that.
Can you not?
I can't remember that, but I can't remember a lot about that night. But I think that's probably your mind's way, isn't it, of dealing and coping, I think, with things like that.
So then now you're waiting for the next update. Where does Jo go from here?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That is something I always think about as well for people that are coming into Hope House. I always think that whilst the person obviously that has got the diagnosis is obviously going to be supported by the hospital and everything, I always think about the impact that then the ripple effect of that on their family and their friends, because actually they now go through a period of massive uncertainty and worry and anxiety because of that person. And I know that person doesn't mean to bring that anxiety to them, but I always think that with cancer, we always think about the patient, but actually that was really important for me when I set up Hope House, was the fact that we made sure that we were able to support other people as well that were around that person, because actually that person needs you then to be quite a strong person, don't they?
It's all you can think about. You want a magic wand, you want to make things better, you want it to go away, but it's the person going through it who's the most important. Yes, you feel anxiety, you feel sadness, you feel helpless.
Yeah.
But you know you've got to be there for your friend, to support your friend whenever you or their family are going to need you. Whenever that call may come through that they need help, support, it's just about being there. But most importantly, it's about listening.
Yeah.
Listening to your friends.
I think for me at the time, it's really tricky. I think you find that people naturally kind of step up, and not that you want people to have to step up, by the way, and I am certainly not a needy person, but that was a period in my life that I really did need the people around me. And I think that sometimes some people can't cope with it. I think that at the time I probably was a little bit cross about that, but actually looking back now, that'll be their own sort of worries and insecurities and issues. I think that some people don't know how to help. I think as well that sometimes when you've been through something in your life, that it actually probably makes you more, probably a bit supportive really as well, because I think you want to almost protect somebody else from what you and I know you obviously went through a really tough time when you were a teenager. But obviously they always say in times like this that you really do learn who your friends are and who are there for you. And I found it really quite complicated, but then I think as well at the time I was really oversensitive to it. I mean, I joke about this now, but on Facebook, for example, if somebody put they were had a cold, or were having the worst day ever because they got a bad cold, I did delete people off Facebook. So sorry if I did delete anybody that is listening to this video. But you know, at that time, reading people's insignificant. And it isn't insignificant, it's all relative now, and I know that. But when you're going through something like chemo and cancer treatment, you read some posts, and I know that was something that used to really frustrate me. I also found people wanting to be involved that maybe weren't involved or hadn't ever been involved in my life before. And I remember getting really cross about that in the early days. And I felt like people sometimes being really nosy. I don't know if I was, again, being oversensitive. There's a lot of things now I look back on and think they were just maybe trying to be nice, Joanne. But at the time, I was super why is that person sending me a card telling me they're thinking of me? And it's bizarre what your brain does. But obviously you really did come forward for me, and it wasn't just you, it was your whole family. Your whole family supported me, and Ian and the children. And you know what, I know you've talked about listening, and that really was an important thing at that time. Why do you think listening is so important for somebody?
I think as a friend, you have to listen. You know your friend anyway, but you have to listen to them. Listening to their fears, listening to their hopes, listening to the dreams, listening on a daily basis whenever you was in contact with them, picking up whether today they wanted to talk about the cancer, or today they didn't want to talk about their cancer, they wanted to talk about anything but.
Yeah.
But really listening, being a friend on the end of the phone.
It must have been real. I mean, I look back now and I think, God, it must have been really hard work being my friend at that time, because I bet you felt sometimes like you was walking on eggshells with me.
And I could tell sometimes just by looking at you how you was feeling.
Yeah.
But it was important for you to tell how you were feeling,
Yeah.
and not people to assume how you're feeling.
Yeah.
You know.
And that did bring up some quite deep conversations.
Oh, definitely.
Didn't it?
Yeah.
I remember, I remember saying to you, if anything happens to me, and I smile at this now because I'm 12 years on now, and I can't really believe I ever said this to you. But I sort of made you promise me that if anything happened, that you'd like look after Ian and the children.
And it was a no-brainer. I would have done, and so
Yeah.
would the rest of the family.
Yeah, but what a conversation for me to come up to with you.
But you have to have these conversations because it's playing on your mind, and you have to get it out.
Yeah.
You know, and if it's somebody you can trust in to have that conversation.
Yeah.
We had some deep, meaningful conversations, like you said. We also had some days where we did nothing but laughed at really surreal things that you was going through, or that the treatment brought up.
Yeah,
And
constipation. It's fine to say it, Nick. It's fine to say it. Most women or most people go through chemo have that problem.
Yeah.
No.
People normally bring people flowers when they're going through a thing. I was bringing prunes, orange juice.
Yes, what a friend.
But again, it was maybe seems insignificant now looking back, but at that time, things that you was thinking about, you had to get off your chest.
Yeah.
You know, it might seem really trivial now, but at that time.
And that makes me smile as well, because I probably had more deep and meaningful conversations with you about like constipation and death and all the random things that come in between it. And yet I didn't have it with some people who you would naturally, so like my sisters, I felt like and I think this is because I'm the eldest, I think my job in life has always been to protect my three sisters.
Exactly, yeah.
And so there were things that I wouldn't talk to them about, and they probably would be mad with me now for saying that, but there were things because my job in life is their sister and I'm their big sister, and I've always been the one that sorts and looks after them and helps them.
Yeah, because you are normally strong, and the protector, like you say, but you had vulnerabilities at that time.
Yeah.
And it was an honour to actually listen to you, have those conversations with me, tell me exactly how you was feeling deep down inside, and you could tell stuff was troubling you. Yeah. But at least I knew at that time what was on your mind.
So listening is important.
Definitely.
It's just, you know, in whatever shape or form, and not probably pushing that person either.
No.
So that they're sort of being forced to have conversations that they don't always want to have. Because I remember sometimes texts used to drive me crazy because some people needed to know the absolute ins and outs of everything that I was having. And it used to really stress me out, because actually when you're going through something like that, it's really awful having to, you sit and you send this massive text. And I got to a point where I'd go, I'm fine, how are you?
Yeah,
and that's what I would do, because I just thought, I just haven't got the energy.
People are concerned.
They are, and they mean well.
People don't know how to react. People think just by dropping a message, you know, they are inquiring how you are. But at the time, you maybe didn't have the energy to reply. You didn't have the energy to say exactly how you was feeling. And again, didn't want to upset them by being totally honest about how you was feeling.
And that's a big thing, because again, that total honesty that you know, I did have. I think if anybody goes through something as significant, it's life affirming, isn't it? If somebody goes through something as significant as that, you know, your own mortality comes into question. And of course, that was my biggest fear, and leaving my children. And I used to worry about things like if Emily started her periods, like I know I wrote really clear instructions in a book for Ian that but I was like, I think that was probably a conversation that I'd had with you.
Yeah.
Will you help Ian?
Yeah.
You know, deal with that. And it was stupid. It was things like that I would literally lay awake in the night worrying about. And nobody ever told me that I wasn't going to survive. But you get into such a dark, dark hole. And actually that doesn't, once your treatment's finished, actually after as well, Nick, I remember you being that support as we move forward as well, because probably a couple of years after, I had some time off work. I'd convinced myself I'd got cancer again, and I was in a real mess with in general in myself. And I remember you again sort of coming forward and stepping up and sort of helping me get through that period, because I think with cancer it's not just a physical just a physical recovery, it's a mental recovery as well, isn't it?
Again, you can't see those scars.
No.
And it's never going to leave you. You're always going to have the fear.
Yeah.
Regarding that diagnosis you had.
Yeah.
But again, like your friends, your support network, they're all the ones that get you through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes you don't have to talk like what you've just done then. It's a squeeze of the hand.
I know.
Sometimes you don't have to be words.
I remember, I think we called it a chemo Sunday.
Oh, chemo Sundays.
Yeah, so my chemo was a Friday. By Sunday, I was not good. I was at absolute rock bottom. And Ian had to go and do a dance competition. And you'd sort of stepped up and was like, I'll look after Jo that day. So what did we do that day? Can you remember?
We sat on the settee. We got, I call them new blankets.
Yeah.
Blanketed up. I asked you what you'd like to eat, and I can vividly remember I'd have gone and got you anything to eat, anything you fancied, and all she wanted was a boring cheese sandwich cut into squares and a glass of squash. And that's all we did on that day, just sat and watched rom-com, chick flicks.
Yeah.
And just spent time, again, chatting or in silence.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. It was just about being there if you needed.
Yeah. That Christmas then, the Christmas obviously that I was going through treatment, I remember my chemo getting delayed, and I wanted that Christmas to be perfect.
You wanted that Christmas to be everything.
I did.
Sparkles, everything.
Yeah, so how demanding was I as a friend at that moment?
I wouldn't say you was demanding. What I would say is you wanted to pull the stops out for the children. You wanted it to be magical, even though you kept saying, I'm fine, and pushing yourself. You were still undergoing your treatment. There was days when you was absolutely on the floor, but you would pick yourself up by school time. You would try and attend any carol concert for the children. I remember one day you said, I really need to go. I want to make a floral display for Christmas. Right, we'll go do it. I know exactly where we can go and get some stuff. So picked Jo up. We went to my sister-in-law's house, collected loads of holly, loads of fern, made this beautiful display, which resulted in Jo coming out in hives because she was allergic to fur. But at that time, that's what you wanted to do, and that's what we did.
Yeah.
The repercussions of the hives.
Well, it was
not
worth
good.
it for the display I had in my hall.
But, at the time, you would have done anything to make that Christmas as magical. And you did.
I did. And when I should have had chemo between Christmas and New Year, and it got delayed, didn't it?
Yeah.
I can't really remember why.
Yeah.
I think because I had some sort of chest infection or something along those lines, and my chemo got delayed because my bloods weren't right. And I was really disappointed because also I had a plan that everything was going to be over and done with by April, and I was going to be better and the world would be all fine then. So I remember you saying, well, you can come to us for New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
And
you came.
Yeah.
And you looked lovely.
Yeah.
And you had your wig on.
Yeah.
You looked stunning.
Yeah.
And then
how long did the wig last?
About an hour.
Yeah.
And then the wig come off, and there you was, still looking beautiful, and the wig was just sat on my kitchen side.
Yeah.
And we had an amazing night.
Yeah.
Surrounded by your family, my family.
Yeah.
It was good.
It was
brilliant.
lovely.
It was brilliant.
Lovely. It was lovely. I think the wig thing as well, that sort of just coming back to that was something that used to really stress me out. I didn't like wearing a wig at all. It just made me hot and sweaty and stressed. But one thing that, and again, me being oversensitive, people often feel the need to tell you that you've got a nice shaped face when you've got no hair. And if you'd have said it, it wouldn't have mattered. I'd have gone, oh, thanks, Nick, you know.
And you did.
But at the time, I remember that used to really, really make me cross. Was I irrational with that?
It's just,
Probably.
like you say, it's just your heightened sensitivity. Some days it would really bother you, and some days you just let it go over the top of your head, your bald head.
Yeah. Definitely.
See, humour.
Absolutely. And I've certainly got a warped sense of humour. Yeah. If we went back to that New Year's Eve then, why was it okay for me to not wear my wig at your house, do you think?
Because you felt comfortable.
Yeah. I think that's a really big thing about our friendship, is that all the way through, you were probably, or you are still to this day, probably one of my comfort blankets in life, if that's a good way of describing you, Nick, because you do wrap people up in like love and care for them, and your family do as well. Not, you know, that is you, and that is, well, what you've created of your children. They are you, aren't they? But you know, I think that is real testament to how you make me feel. I can always be myself in front of you and Rob, always, and I don't have to pretend either with you guys. But I would have been able to have done that night because of how you make me feel. Always make me feel. You never judge me, and that is so refreshing in today's world as well, where we feel judged all the time by everything and every decision we make. But you certainly made me feel comfortable that night for me to be able to do that. It's interesting though as well, because some, like, you know, I know we've just said about it, but sometimes some people you could say things to me, but then somebody else could say it exactly the same, but I would be so sensitive to that. I wonder why we are like that.
I really don't know.
I think we are as a human race, though. It's not just, is it just me? Or?
And it can be how you was feeling, your emotions.
Yeah.
You know, people can say things to you which maybe really upset you, and the next time somebody says something to you and not bother you, bother the way they've said it, or why have they said it, or why have they asked me that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange though how we react to different things, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I suppose it's who we are as people.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons though with you is, again, I always feel like you've got a real layer of empathy and understanding, and I think you whilst you hadn't been through cancer yourself, and you know, and touch wood, I don't know where there is any wood here, but touch wood, I never want that to happen ever, but obviously you went through that with your mum and dad as well, and I think you know the impact that had on you as a teenager, and that's why I always think with you are so empathetic and so relatable, because you have had those experiences yourself. Do you think that makes...
I think so, and it's like having the children's group. I can relate to what the children are going through. I never want any child to lose a parent.
No.
It doesn't matter what age they are.
No.
But yeah, I suppose I'm a person now who wants to make things better for people, and if I can, I will.
Yeah.
But if I can't, then
Yeah.
we'll find a way to try and make things better.
And I think that's where me and you are so similar. Yeah, because that is me, isn't it?
Oh, definitely.
And I think that's why we are a little bit like two peas in a pod, because we will both give our last penny to make somebody happy, won't we, in some way, shape or form. And it isn't about money, by the way. It's about everything is about, it's time, isn't it? It's time.
Yeah, it is time. It's time, it's understanding, back to listening.
Yeah, always back to listening.
Always back to listening.
When we sort of move then beyond cancer, obviously our friendship was probably stronger than ever, and it continues to, that continues to be so and always will be. But did you see that did you ever think that I would set something up? Was it your hope? Because I remember thinking little bits. But
it was probably one of those random, sat on a settee, putting the world to rights, listening to how you felt, listening to how isolated you felt, and your dream that, I'm going to set something up. I don't want anybody to be alone like you felt at that time. It is okay to have friends around you, but sometimes we don't understand what you're going through. But to have, to listen to you, and Jo coming up with all these weird and wacky dreams that she was going to do this, and she was like, Jo, just slow down, get yourself better. I'm fine. This is what I'm going to do. And look what you've done.
I think I do say that there are levels of, I always say my friend and my friends and my family were absolutely incredible. There are some things that and you never took offence to that either, but there are some things that you can only talk to with somebody that's going through treatment.
Definitely.
And it's not disrespecting anything that you have done or will ever do, ever. But there are some things that you do find people going through it have that understanding on, and sometimes that was things for me was things like the symptoms that you were going through and the side effects of the drug.
And that was a learning curve for me as well. It was also the knowledge that came with you being ill, from your medication that you were taking, from the steroid, the periods of having the tablets, what it was doing to you, how you would recover, the next step. It was learning along. Yeah. Going along with you.
Yeah. Going through it, there was things that I protected Ian from. Absolutely. Definitely protected Ian from. And definitely, like my family. I remember one person in my family that I was always quite honest with and open with was my Uncle Jim, obviously. And because he'd gone through it, he had this other level of understanding about what my worries were, the symptoms and side effects and things like that. And I was pretty honest with you all the way through, and I know I had some quite big conversations with you, but there were still things that I wanted to protect you from as well. Because again, I'm Mrs. Joanne Sowerby, who is strong and confident and can look after everybody all the time. How would that make you feel, knowing there was maybe some things that I didn't always share with you, like that were more, I don't know, I won't say because everything was cancer related at that period, but probably more upsetting that I didn't want to talk to you about?
Again, it's you trying to protect everybody.
Yeah.
I want to help you no matter what, but then as you don't want to show your vulnerability, as in stuff you was going through that you didn't particularly want to tell me about, and not for me to take offence. I would never have taken offence, because some things are personal, some things you needed to keep to yourself, or sometimes you needed to share that with somebody who was going through exactly what you was going through.
Yeah. So as a friend,
Yeah.
it was really important though.
Yeah.
You was okay with that and being respectful.
Exactly.
But then I suppose again, some people would have struggled
Yeah.
with that, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Because they think maybe I was like rejecting them
Exactly.
almost.
Pushing, being pushed out, or
Yeah.
rejected him, or, you know, deemed as, well, she don't need my help. She don't need me to be there. It's not that case at all.
No.
You have to find your own support.
Yeah, network.
Yeah,
don't you?
exactly. Your own support network from different means. You know, you can't just rely on one person. You know, you need a village to support.
It's true,
yeah.
isn't it? It's that saying when we talk about raising a child, it
Yeah.
takes a village to raise a child.
Exactly. Yeah.
And actually, it's very similar.
Yeah.
You know, and I am pretty good in that respect of drawing my support from those that I am pretty good
Yeah.
is in drawing my support from them people, and I will go out and ask for help. But it does make me think sometimes. I'm sat here looking at you now thinking how lucky I am to have you. But I do think about there are people out there that have not got the support and the friendship that we have, and you wonder how will they go forward and manage.
Exactly. And all that anxiety that's building up inside when they've not particularly got anybody to talk to.
Yeah.
And that's why Hope House
Yeah.
is an amazing place to go to for guidance, for support, for just a cup of tea and a chat.
Yeah.
And you never know what that chat may bring.
No, absolutely. But it does worry. That is something else that worries me, because I look at you and I think, God, I'm the luckiest girl in the world.
Like those little thoughts that creep into your head 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But then you've got that building up inside you, and you've not got the ability to be actually relaying that fear, or relaying that what's going to happen, how am I going to feel, how am I going to look.
Yeah.
You're not releasing those questions to anybody, and you've got nobody there to sound off to, and somebody to say it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And again, like you say, this is why this place is so important, isn't it?
Exactly.
Obviously, you were one of my absolute go-to people. And as I've said several times already, you are still to this day. But what makes an individual a really good support when somebody is going through something so significant in their life, do you think?
We've already established a good listener.
Yeah.
But also knowing when to step back.
Yeah.
Know when to push yourself forward. Know when to realise things aren't good. Know when to know that person's having a good day. Establish that person's having a really bad day.
I think something that you were always really incredible with was when I was having a bad day, and if I ever did this to you, I'm really sorry, but you know, sometimes I know that if I wasn't feeling it for any reason, that my messages would be more like, I'm fine, how are you? How, as a friend, obviously that must be really difficult, but you never ever took offence to that.
No, I think you haven't got to take offence, because yes, that person has got such a lot on their plate, and some days they'll want to talk, some days they don't want to talk. And like you say, it's not being offended, not thinking, oh, that was short and sweet, but knowing she just needs a bit of time.
Yeah.
She knows I'm here. She knows I'm at the end of the phone.
Yeah.
Whether it be a phone call, a text, can you come? And you go like a shot, but not pressurising that person, not even thinking, oh, what's up with her today?
Yeah.
Letting that person go through the journey how they want to, and not feel like you're putting pressure on them. Let them come to you.
Yeah.
but be there, but most importantly.
So I think obviously you have different groups of people around you, so, and anyone that knows me knows that I have got quite a big family. For me as the patient going through it, and probably, again, I'm a bit of a unique character in many different ways, but maybe I'm not, maybe most of us feel like this, but sometimes with me things have to be on my terms. And I felt like sometimes that when I was going through the treatment, that all the focus was on the cancer, and actually sometimes I just wanted to not talk about it, and that not to be the focus of conversation all the time. And I know that must be really hard, because at points I must have looked a little bit dodgy, and looked ill. But equally, sometimes I just wanted to be normal Jo, and be able to do all those normal things. And I didn't always, it's not about grand gestures, it's nothing like that. For me, the biggest thing was people giving me the time. And like you said already, really, about knowing when to come forward, but also knowing when I maybe needed a bit of space, because sometimes I did.
Yeah, definitely.
And I remember you saying about hospital appointments, because you did take me to some of them. And sometimes I'd be like, no, I want to go in on my own.
Yeah. So I just took you, dropped you at the door, and then picked you back at a later time.
Yeah.
Or we would share it between friends.
Yeah.
Because you have got an amazing group of friends around you, and we would share the journeys to Hull for radiotherapy.
Yeah.
So you had somebody different, whether it be a family member or a friend, to talk to on the journey there and back. And again, the cancer would be either a topic of conversation all the way there or not.
Yeah.
Or something totally random, something totally different.
But what we don't always need is, great big hot pots put on somebody's step every day.
It's lovely.
Or a basket of ironing done.
Yeah.
Which
is lovely.
Which is lovely, obviously. But what we actually need is just people's time.
It is time.
And
understanding.
And understanding. And I think we've come back to it so many times today, but it's that listening, that ability to listen, isn't it? And actually listen. Not interrupt, just listen.
Just listen. And not assume.
And not assume, yeah.
Not assume how they're feeling.
Yeah. Actually, Nic, this is almost a celebration then. So we've known each other for 20 years. We've been through a right roller coaster over the years, and we probably will have more roller coasters as life goes on. But I am eternally blessed for your friendship and your love, and I am incredibly grateful always to you and your lovely boys and what we all have together. And I'll never, ever, ever, ever be able to thank you enough for what you have given to me and brought to me as a person. Okay, and I love you lots.